So, do you want to know how to take your art to the next level from standard lineup basicness to something more bubbly and painterly, maybe inspired by the famous Arcane art style? I mean, it's literally why you clicked on this video, right? Hi all, and welcome back! I just want to say a massive thank you to you all. We hit 1,000 subscribers on Sunday, and I could honestly not be more grateful. It is getting to a point where I truly believe that I can do YouTube full time by June next year, and so far I have only gotten so much support from the community for that. I am forever grateful to everyone, and each person choosing to watch my videos means a lot, and your continued support helps a girlie out tremendously, by the way. Anyways, Arcane. So with the tragic culmination of season 2, you know I had to hop on the bandwagon and do a video related to it. So I won't even stall, and I'm just going to get right into it. So, step 1, the sketch. We always want to sketch when making a refined piece, at least to keep it safe. You can grow out of it if you want, but for simplicity's sake, I will use a sketch. Arcane follows a semi-realistic art style for its characters, and by that I mean that the features are distinguishably rendered in, with some stylization to differentiate the show from reality, and the fact that it's hand-painted. So to honour this, I will give Jen here, which is our test subject for today, a fairly standard face shape, bearing in mind realistic proportions. So by that I mean that her nose will be of a pretty average size, covering enough of her face to be recognised as human, and her mouth, which I will help to space from the nose by adding this little thing here, which is like the thing in between the nose and the mouth, and being as wide as the space in between her eyes. One distinguishable feature of the Arcane style is the inner corners of characters' eyes being lit up and highlighted, as you can see in these examples. Other areas that show light in the same way are the chin, the top lip outline, the bridge and tip of the nose, and in between the character's eyebrows. These areas can be lightly sketched to be accounted for, which I think I've actually sketched in on the speed paint. Little life hack, but don't tell anyone. If the character is looking forwards, make your life easier by copying and pasting the eye, and fix the pupil if needed. So if your character doesn't appear to be looking through space and time. Arcane style eyes are quite big, as they are one of the main ways the creators use emotion to tell the story. So you definitely want to pay attention by making the eyes maybe slightly larger than average, just to add the stylization of your character in that style. The lips should extend from each inner corner of the eye, just as a point of reference. Her lip shape is pretty generic, and with some slight adjustments, obviously based on ethnic features and stuff like that, you can use the standard sketch as almost a template which can be applied to pretty much every character that has lips. For the hair, I blocked in the general area, so very rough shape. The Arcane style has a very unique look for the hair due to the literal 3D rendering that they do in the animation software. And whilst it can be achievable digitally, like through digital painting, it is not very efficient, if you get what I mean. I consider myself to be a very efficient artist, so I came up with a different method of drawing hair, which is just as fun to execute. Basically, I just blocked the main shape to start off. I then added some of the final details to the sketch, such as earrings and clothes, and tidied it up by erasing the unwanted lines and adding in more marks, which I think would help strengthen some of the shapes. By the way, the only brush I will be using for this entire drawing is fresh SALMON. I will link it below. It's a Clip Studio Paint asset, so I'm unsure if it's available on other platforms. But this brush is absolutely amazing for its crisp lines and also the delicate blending that it allows if you play with it enough. I made sure that there were no open lines in the sketch and selected outside and around it. I then chose the invert selected area in the selection panel and shrunk it by roughly 6mm, so 3 times 2mm. Although that figure depends on the resolution that you're drawing at. It can be 1, it can be 10, depending on the file size. But I just shrunk it to prevent the base color from looking tacky on top of, like, underneath the sketch. And once I selected my base color, I began to color in the line art. Officially on step 2 now. Coloring the line art is personally such an important step in digital art. It helps with getting an overall feel of the tone of that area before you've even rendered it in. Although you can also color the line art after the base colors and keep it black throughout the coloring process. This is completely up to you, really. Remember for this tutorial that there will be no formal line art, as we will work through the color straight into the sketch. You can eventually keep an eye on all the layers I use on the right hand side of the panel. Like the layer panel is what I mean. To the shock and horror of everyone, I merged the sketch and base. For this method, I found that essentially treating it as a painting and working on one layer can be really helpful to get into that render mindset, if you get me. So that's exactly what I did. Now, officially on to step 3, which is the rendering process. I took my handy fresh SALMON brush and began blending in the shades and colors around the nose. To achieve depth without muddying your colors, I always opt for a darker but also more saturated version of said color. Also, do not be afraid to play with colors. Throw in an unexpected blue or yellow in there, such shades show knowledge of color theory, with warmer tones usually showing where light hits and cooler tones outlining shadows. But that doesn't have to always be the case. For the nose, I tried to remain mindful of the 3 main shapes, which I broke down the nose in. So a circle, a trapezium, and the rectangle for the bridge of the nose. Obviously, the color of the highlight will depend on the lighting and the skin tone of your character, but as a generic rule of thumb, light warm colors tend to show a more natural warm lighting and work on most skin tones, like human natural skin tones. Obviously, if your character is blue, you're going to want to use like a light blue or a light green. Anyways, I filled her upper lip with a dark red to show the shadow it casts, and used a lighter flesh tone to fill in her lower lip, which gets more light, especially if the source of light comes from above. Notice how I keep a line right above the lip. That is a key characteristic of the Arcane style. This would be better blended in later on, but it is a key feature that is noticeable across most characters. After adding the texture of the lip, I added the shadow right underneath. Again, this is another key feature in the Arcane faces, being especially noticeable in Kate. This helps to subtly outline the shape of the face without outright lining the chin out. For the eyes, I blended her upper lid outwards and added a bit of light, not eyeshadow, light, please and thank you, on her eyelid. The color choice helps to just tie in the eyes with the rest of the skin, making sure that the highlight I've used on her eyelids pretty much matches the same color as the one I've used on her nose, on her cheeks, on her chin. You get me. For the pupils, which I drew on top of an already white base, I went in with the base eye color that I have for her, then added the center bit with a much darker shade, not black, like dark brown, and then I added in the highlights. Pretty standard. But the Arcane style executes these highlights in pairs usually, so a circle and a line, like a straight rectangular line, being the defining characteristic. The iris can then be blended out as you wish. I didn't really overcomplicate it and chose some more saturated versions of Jennifer's base eye color to add in a little detail. The nose and under eyes are also very well contoured and help define the overall shape of the face by just blocking in some general shapes. Usually you can trace the jawline from ear to chin, ever so slightly for most characters to just define their cheekbones, but in cases of more gaunt characters or like professional moggers like Jace, Victor, the cheek contour will appear thicker to allow for a more chiseled cheekbone and jawline. To also add some vibrancy to your character's skin, and I say this mainly for human characters, you can blush the skin ever so slightly with a shade that's super slightly more red and dark than the skin tone, like literally the slightest difference, to just create a bit more depth and make them look a bit more alive. Also, you can add a less harsh light on other areas of the face, such as the forehead and the cheekbones, but honestly, just have a play around with the colors. Ultimately, we are taking inspiration and learning some techniques from the Arcane style to develop our own. We're not becoming photocopies to copy and paste the Arcane style. I mean, you can if you want, but it's not necessarily why we're here today. I think that ingenuity and uniqueness is always appreciated, and that is what makes art. Everything that's unique about it. Under the chin and nose, do not be afraid to go with a darker shade to outline those differences. And also, I know I forgot to press record for this bit, but yeah, anyways, moving on to the ears. Since they are not in the very foreground, I started by blocking in the darker shades first. For that, I basically just outlined the whole ear, and from that point, I just built color on top until I was satisfied with the overall overall level of detail in the ears, and just like remained mindful of where earrings are going to be placed later on when I add the final details on top. Do not be afraid to also use unexpected colors such as bright yellows, especially if you're going to blend them in, because they just add that more unique touch to your drawing, which is essentially everything Arcane is about. There's this screenshot of Jinx where she, like pre-shimmer Jinx, where the highlights on her under eyes are purple, and that's just such a good example of how Arcane uses color theory to come up with something completely unique, and that's literally the best example I can give as to why that's good and how it's good. Anyways, moving on, step 6, the hair. For the hair, I again came up with a slightly different method that still gives the same unique feel. So I started off by applying the base hair color for the whole structure, shape thing, and afterwards I went for a darker color and airbrushed the main areas where I wanted to lay the shadows, such as the middle hairline, under her ears, by her neck, and also to define some of the strands. From there, I became best friends with the lasso tool and the lasso fill tool. I used the lasso fill to tidy up some of the dark shading with the original base color, then created these specific selection areas with the lasso tool and began airbrushing them in with a brighter orange, as you can see. I think this gives such a cool effect and such a cool unique touch as well. And once I was happy with all the airbrushing that I've done, I took my handy fresh salmon brush again and just combined everything together, as you can see, to just add some effect on the hair. And again, I did not add every single strand of hair because that's not what we're aiming for. We're not doing photorealism. Obviously, if you want, you can, but I think for my adaptation of the style, I just rather keep it quite simple and condensed. Obviously, I can't leave a drawing without adding highlights, by the way, so for that, I aimed for a slightly different hue compared to the original hair color, so I went for like a more brighter yellow. But I feel like the choice of color is very important because it helps set the atmosphere that I want to set for a piece. And now on to the final step officially, the final details. So step 7 just encompasses everything from drawing the clothes, adding her jewelry, sorting out the background, and just adding in the last final bits and bobs before sending this drawing off to the gallery, essentially. I found that when drawing gold, you only really need 4 colors, which are these. And I use them as such. So I start with a darker shade, which I also use to define the shape of the jewelry or armor or whatever it is that I'm drawing, buckle, whatever. And I then build up on top of that with the lighter colors. So the warmer but lighter yellow, then the pale yellow, and then the white highlight. And I think it gives a very good gold effect. Also, just putting it out there, I do not really know how to draw fabric like at all, as well as I'd like. Hence, this is only a bust drawing. But in general, I tried to picture the way fabric would fold and paint it accordingly with the necessary colors, obviously. Her top is meant to be white, but that can be determined by a play of colors, especially with the use of complementary shades. So a good way to draw white fabric is to add purple shade and slightly yellow highlights. Once I have gone over the drawing and made sure that I am happy with most of the highlights, strands of hair, beauty marks and other whatnots, I moved on to the background. Clip Studio Paint has a really nice feature where you can give a layer a border, and here is where you can duplicate the base layer and add a border to it. So using this little tab right here and that button. It's super helpful, and I use it in literally every single drawing. I might need to tone down a bit with it because I use it all the time. But yeah, after adding the final last sparkles, which by the way, they are custom brushes from the community tab, which is again another reason why I can't stop recommending Clip Studio Paint enough. Our drawing is done. I hope you all enjoyed this little tutorial, and if you have any other suggestions for me, please drop them down below. I read every single comment, and I truly appreciate every single thought someone expresses in my comment sections. Once again, thank you all so much for 1,000 subscribers. It is a milestone I didn't think I would hit so soon actually, but I guess we can only go up from here. See you all next time. Bye!